give you guys a quick introduction to what we're going to be talking about. So we're going to be getting into a lot of stuff that has to deal with Mars and Saturn and the moon, and just the real history of what we have been told about extraterrestrials and everything like that. So I want to thank you guys again, and let's get into the video. Now, most of the time when it comes to UFO things, the information is not always clear. You know, we see all the home videos and everything like that people put out. It's always something to give us a lot of skepticism about UFOs when we see a lot of these videos. So a lot of people don't take it seriously, and we don't always look into extraterrestrial phenomena because a lot of people just classify it as crazy. But when you go and research a lot of the real details about a lot of UFO sightings around America, around the world, actually, it's a lot of validity to a lot of the stories. What I was saying before about, you know, the issues with so many people not being able to believe the UFO stuff that's going on and all the phenomena that we've seen around the world with the sightings and all the pictures and everything, the videos, is what I do with my research is some things that you can look at that you can use to tell what's true and what's not true. So what I do with my research is, you know, a lot of times when we look at information that we can't tell if it's true or not, I just examine, you know, all of the details about that situation, and it's easier to tell what's true or not because, you know, you can say to yourself, why would they do something like this if this is not true? Or why wouldn't they do that if this is true, you know, and vice versa, or not true, or vice versa. So this is how I approach a lot of my research some of the time. Sometimes you can see something that tells you a lot, actually speak louder than words. So it's like, why do you do this, or why hide this, or why put this here if this is not true? This is some of the things we're going to discuss in this film, things that the government do and has done that really alludes to there being a really huge UFO phenomenon. It's not always easy to look at what we read and what we hear about UFOs, about Mars, about the moon and Saturn, and to, you know, honestly take it as actual fact. So, you know, TV is one of the reasons why we can't do that. And it's just a lot of things sound so far-fetched, and we've been dumbed down by TV not to accept things as proof, as fact. So it's easier for us to just really go by the mistakes that the government made and the things that they do that kind of allude to them trying to cover things up. And this is what we're going to really address in this video. So you have to ask yourself questions like, you know, if there wasn't a UFO phenomena, if it wasn't, you know, real true reports of UFO sightings or what have you, why would NASA, why would scientists be spending so much money, billions and billions of dollars on satellites? You know, it costs millions of dollars to keep these satellites working, you know, a year, millions of dollars. And it costs, you know, even more money for them to be built. And it's not so much that it's just America, because you got to remember, we had these satellites, you know, some of them since the 70s. So you got to ask yourself, okay, so we know America and Russia with the satellites and everything like that. If it wasn't, you know, no sightings, you know, we got these antennas listening for radio signals or what have you. If we never found any, if it wasn't any sightings, why do we keep funding it? Why do we keep spending money? And not just that, why have other countries around the world also spent billions of dollars to build satellites and, you know, to listen and to watch space as well? So these are things we got to look at. We got to look at these things and question them as, you know, if there wasn't a UFO phenomenon, if it wasn't an extraterrestrial phenomenon, then why spend billions of dollars to monitor this non-existing phenomenon? Why spend millions of dollars trying to maintain these equipment, these satellites, these antennas to, you know, monitor these so-called non-existent, you know, extraterrestrial phenomena? So these are some of the things you got to really look into and just say, you know, if not, then why? You know, why do this? And we all know that when a person is trying to cover up something, then, you know, of course they're going to lie. And one of the things we got to look at is NASA has never, they are notoriously known for not telling us the truth. You know, the whole slogan with NASA, never a straight answer. So we can't hardly expect them to give us any truth. So we got to dig deeper and look into the history and the facts surrounding the extraterrestrial phenomena and everything that we have been seeing. So we're going to get into this and a lot more in this video. Now, this is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI for short. This antenna costs millions of dollars to build and millions of dollars a year to maintain. And again, the question you got to ask yourself is, one, why? Why would you in the first place spend millions of dollars to build an antenna to listen to what's in outer space, or to try to record what's going on in outer space if you have no reason to do so. So millions of dollars to maintain this antenna, which they've been maintaining it for years, and you would think after a certain amount of time that they would shut these things down because it absorbs so much money to maintain it, to keep it going. But yet we have seen more antennas go up around the world, and more new technology geared towards understanding and recording and maintaining machines and devices and all kinds of things that's going to record space and record, the possible existence of extraterrestrial life or what have you. So you would think, why spend all this time and money on something that you are not 100% sure is true, or that you don't have any kind of inkling, or any kind of anything that will help you justify spending this kind of time and money on something like this. Now, when we read about SETI, it says here, when it comes to the search for intelligent extraterrestrial life throughout the universe, we've already been sitting quietly and using the search for extraterrestrial intelligence SETI initiative to listen to spikes in radioactive activity throughout our universe that could be coming from sources of intelligent life. And it says down here, SETI has already managed to discover some faint signals, but scientists aren't so sure they're coming from aliens. In fact, lots of interference from the Earth itself or from other sources in space could be, I'm going to say that again, from other sources in space could be clouding our understanding of what looks like an alien's attempt to communicate. Now just think about what it could possibly mean by other sources in space. Now this is the Allen Telescope Array. This is something that SETI has spent money to have built, and to also try to get information about, extraterrestrials and UFOs. This is another satellite or another antenna that costs millions of dollars to maintain and build. They're supposed to have built like 47 of them, and there's supposed to be a huge array of these antennas that was supposed to be spread for miles. But supposedly they had an idea that they was going to use them for, and there was some funding issues, and supposedly they shut down most of these antennas. But again, just like with the SETI antennas, it's talking about here. It says SETI Institute Center for SETI Research, CSR for short, uses ATA, which is the Allen Telescope Array, in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, observing 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, from 2007 to 2015. ATA has identified hundreds of millions of technological signals. See that again. ATA has identified hundreds of millions of technological signals so far. All these signals have been assigned the status of noise or radio frequency interference because A, they appear to be generated by satellites or Earth-based transmitters, or B, they disappear before the threshold time limit of 1 hour, which means they had to basically hold on to the signal for an hour before they can completely confirm what it is. Researchers and CSR are presently working on ways to reduce the threshold time limit and to expand ATA's capabilities for direction of signals that may have embedded messages. So now you got to understand what it's saying here. One, it's talking about how they can't really tell 100% what the signals are because they get a lot of interference from Earth-based technological signals. So you would think when they built this machine, when they built these antennas, when they was drawing them up, that they would have some kind of radius set into the detection system of these antennas. So just think about it like this. You have the Earth, and let's say the radius or the area of Earth, and the radius and the area of the satellites that's above the Earth. So if you calculate the entire radius of the planet and factor in those satellites, anything that's in that radius, you know what it is. you know it's either coming from Earth or you know it's coming from these satellites in space. So it shouldn't be hard for you to differentiate between what's coming from Earth and what is coming from the satellites in space. Anything past that radius, you should know it's a signal from space. But you have to understand like why it's going to keep telling you this. And I'm going to get into this in a little bit. It's going to always have a but, because you got to understand what NASA is about. Of course, they're not going to tell us what's going on. It's going to always be a but. One breath or one line is talking about, basically we picking up millions of signals out there. Then what are these millions of signals? What is that? And they have a threshold time limit of 1 hour, meaning they need to hold on to these signals for an hour to properly identify them. That's something that's suspect. And to me, if you hold on to a signal that seems to be a radio signal from somewhere else and you hold on to it for 10 minutes, that should tell you right there that it's definitely, something from probably extraterrestrials or something that is man-made or artificial, I should say. But this is the excuse that they're going to keep giving us. And you'll see anybody who's into this research, you'll be reading research from NASA, or you'll be reading research from a lot of researchers, and it'll always have that but. It seems like they have a concrete, hands down analysis or lock on this whole extraterrestrial phenomenon. And then it's a but. There's always an uncertainty somewhere that's involved. And it's confusing to people who do their research. But when you look at the fine print of NASA, when you understand the laws and what's going on, things start to make a lot more sense. Now, as I said, every time we look at any of the footage of UFOs, every time we see information about extraterrestrials or what have you, we can never really accept that information because of how it's presented. It's always presented with a but. It's always presented with an asterisk or something like that, or it's not 100% certain. And as I said, because of television, we are desensitized basically to the prospect or the possibility of UFOs or what have you. So again, a lot of people look at the news, and if the news ain't talking about it, if the news is not saying that it's true, then we just, we leave it alone. So when you see these videos and when you see people talking about extraterrestrials, we say, well, if it was real, the news would have shown us or said something about it. And we have to realize that the people who want to keep this information away from us own this whole news media, as I always talk about. So now what we have to understand is, even if they found 100% proof of extraterrestrials, they have already taken care of the media. One, they own it. But they have already put into law that even if researchers or scientists or what have you find this information, if you control the media, the major means of putting out information to the masses of people, then the masses are not going to get it. You can put it on YouTube, you can put it online all you want. It will be accepted as bullcrap or will be suspect just like every other video. And that's the whole thing with the internet. You can put something out that's 100% true. Because it's on the internet and because mainstream media is not talking about it, because mainstream media has earned the trust for some reason of, Americans and people around the world that just believe the media about everything. The media is not saying it. It can't be true. It can't be possible. Then it's easy for them to basically hide everything and to have us really skeptical about anything involving extraterrestrials or UFOs. So one, you have to understand the laws. You have to understand what they have put in place to basically tell us, one, that they're never going to tell us the truth, and we're never going to know the truth. All this NASA stuff and everything that they're talking about is just smoke and mirrors, and it's all geared towards, one, them doing their research and doing what they want to do as far as space exploration, and then telling us what they want us to know, or telling us nothing at all. But I want you to take a listen to Richard Hoagland, and we're going to get into Richard Hoagland a lot in this video, and the stuff he talks about. And a lot of you may have heard of him and seen some of the stuff he has put out. But I want to clarify. Well, I want to give you my stance on what I think of him and his research and everything like that. But I want you to listen to what he's saying, because some of the stuff he said in this video is true. But, the premise of the video, what the video is really about, is bullshit, which we'll get into later. But take a listen and understand what NASA is really about and why they won't tell us anything. So basically what Richard Hoagland is saying is, it's law. So even if they found something that pertains to extraterrestrials and the truth about them, they're not going to tell us because they see us as children. We won't be able to handle it. It's going to destroy America. It's going to destroy the world if we knew the truth about extraterrestrials. Which tells you why show to the world that you're going to go to the moon and that you're doing all this stuff with space or what have you. But then you have this law in place saying that we are not going to tell you the truth about anything. So then you have to think back. What if when you were supposedly showing the entire world the whole moon landing, what if aliens would have flew by? Did you not once think of that? You got to think about that. What if, during that time, it was live. Remember, there was supposed to be a live viewing of them going to the moon, which I proved in my video was bullshit. And we're going to get into that in this video as well. But what if UFOs would have passed by or something like that? And, then what? That basically throws your whole entire plan, out the door as far as not showing the world the truth about extraterrestrials. And the fact that you would try to put a law in place and put something in place to not tell us shows us that either you already know that such a thing exists and you have been dealing with it or you have proof about it or what have you. So they wouldn't put this law in place. They wouldn't put this whole thing in place if they didn't know for sure. So basically, you got to understand, one, they're not going to tell us the truth. Any kind of information pertaining to extraterrestrial life is going to be classified as national security, and it has to be deemed national security, a security issue, a security risk for you to give it to the public. So it's not going to be put out there. Now, if you get your own information, you're welcome to put it online, and then it's going to be scrutinized, and they're going to try to make you look crazy, and then people are going to look at it as if it's bullshit and it's bogus because it's online and it's not on the news. And we understand why that is. So now, Richard Hoagland is the guy who is known for the face on Mars. And a lot of you probably heard about this before, as I said, about their whole face on Mars thing. And he was the one who was really pushing it, him and his team, about, it being artificial and everything like that. So now this basically goes back to November 14th, 1971 with the Mariner 9 mission. It basically went to Mars and took pictures, I should say, of, dead volcanoes and canyons and basically dried up riverbeds. So February 8th, 1972, you have Mariner basically take pictures of an area known as Elysium Planitia. And Elysium Planitia is where they found pyramids, or so-called pyramids on Mars. So of course this, sparked them to really want to examine that area more. So in 1976, they sent out Viking 1 and 2 to basically go back to their area. It was equipped with more sophisticated, better quality cameras that they sent to the same area to basically take pictures to confirm the pyramids. Now, Viking 1 and 2 also went to an area called Cydonia, where this is where they found the face on Mars, but they also found more pyramids as well in this area. So this is basically what Richard Hoagland is getting into, but it's a lot, surrounding this whole story. So now also north of the Martian pyramid, they found 2 3-sided pyramids. They also found about 10 miles south of the face, they found a 5-sided pyramid that was basically 1.6 miles long and 1 mile wide. They also found a 600-foot spire-shaped object, you might as well say, that was on the edge of a crater. And a spire shape would basically be the shape of like the Eiffel Tower or the shape of an obelisk, like the Egyptian obelisk or the Washington Monument, which is basically 600 feet tall to be, precise. So they found this stuff on Mars. And the whole argument is it artificial or is it something that was done naturally with all the destruction, with Mars or what have you? And this is basically what the whole, pictures was trying to, people was trying to show with the pictures, that it's artificial. This is, somebody made this. This is something that's built. It's not a natural occurrence. This is something that is artificial and that some kind of intelligent life built. So basically, you had with the mission with Viking, it took about over 60,000 pictures. So the pictures was taken and they basically was stored away, and they didn't tell anybody about them. Nobody talked about the face or about any of the structures or what have you. They was basically, stashed away. So then you had a couple researchers basically come across the pictures, and they started to basically drum up some attention surrounding the pictures, but nothing huge, came about with it. And so Richard Hoagland got a hold of the research that those guys was doing, and he basically took a look at the pictures and automatically connected it with Kemet, with Egypt, saying that, this is like the way it's set up is almost like Kemet. And, this is something we really have to look at and really pay attention to. So he basically put together a team of the top best, computer analysts and video analysts and picture analysts and guys who's like at the top of their field at examining pictures and structures or what have you, to the point where they know if they're looking at a picture of something, if it's artificial or if it's something that's done by nature. So Hoagland and his team basically went full steam with this whole thing and examining and analyzing the pictures and basically comparing it with other photos and just, their research on being able to look at a picture and being able to tell if it's a structure, or if it's artificial or natural. So I believe it was 1984 when they basically came to the conclusion that 100% it was artificial. It was an artificial structure that somebody built. This was not something that was, nature or natural. This was artificial. So they basically went full steam in pursuing the truth about, the whole thing, like, what was going on, who built it or what have you. And it seemed like everybody was behind them in their research and what they was trying to do. People wanted to get to the bottom of it. And everybody was with them except for NASA. NASA seemed like they was at every turn, every corner, on their back about the information. They wasn't really with it. They was trying to downplay the photos and say it was something else, or it's just a reflection of light that's giving the illusion of a face and all this and that. And Hoagland actually accused NASA of doctoring some of the pictures when they basically gave out information, because of course they had to do press about this and they would ask questions about the face all during this time. And it seemed like every time they was asked questions, the pictures that they showed seemed to be a little different from the pictures that Hoagland had, which, remember, was the originals. That's something you got to understand. He had the original pictures from those shots that the Viking took. So his pictures was a lot more clear. And everybody knows when you keep making copies, of a picture, the more copies you make, the more bad the image becomes. The closer you are to the original, is you get a better quality shot of the photo. And that's something you got to really remember when you do research on this specific subject, because of what we're going to get into later. So, everybody seemed to be with Hoagland and his team. You had Congressman Robert A. Rowe, who basically was a congressman, and he basically was on a committee that worked with NASA. So he was really with Hoagland and his team. He was really interested in their information, and he basically said, "I'm going to do whatever I can, give y'all 100% back, and whatever I can do to get to the bottom of this." So it was kind of weird to Hoagland and his team, because, they like, well, this dude works with NASA. He's on a committee that basically works with NASA. So NASA's kind of against it. So it's kind of weird that he's trying to help us out. But then, later out of the blue, he basically resigned his position, but he kept his position on the committee. He resigned his position, I guess, as a congressman, or whatever dealings or involvement he had with NASA on the same level as Hoagland. He resigned that position, but he stayed on the committee with whatever he was doing with NASA. And he basically just completely backed away, just out of the blue, backed away from everything that Hoagland and him was doing, which really made them look at it as like, what's going on? This dude was with it. He was, 100% with the whole thing. And then all of a sudden he backed out. So this basically caused Hoagland and his team to take the whole thing to the United Nations. And in 1992, he had a whole lecture at the United Nations, basically giving his research on the face on Mars and the pyramids. And he was basically connecting the whole structure. He was showing cities on ancient cities on Mars and structures and trying to parallel it with Egypt, with Kemet. So this was huge. And you got to think about once the United Nations we're talking about. Even, okay, a picture is a picture. I mean, just think about if you came to the United Nations with a picture that looked like something, what you would have to do to actually get a committee put together to listen to what you have to say about these pictures. But they did with Hoagland, which, all the information is not really put out there. But, of course, Hoagland had a little bit of clout. But, it's a lot of information that they must have had other than the pictures that gave validity to what Hoagland was saying. So when he gave his lecture, they took it seriously. It was something that was not looked at as, spooky or weird or something like that. They actually was believing what he said, so much so that you had Sierra Leone and you had Grenada basically put the Mars face on stamps. Now, understand NASA already had an orbiter out there orbiting Mars where they could just basically retake some pictures, more pictures closer or what have you, to basically try to re-examine, what was on Mars, the face and the structures. So it didn't look like, NASA was trying to do such a thing. Like they basically was just trying to say, well, it's not what you think it is. It's not worth the time. And do you understand how this stuff works and da-da-da. But, they was pushing the issue that, we got to go re-examine these places. We got to get better cameras out there. We got to get something on the ground or what have you. And NASA was basically they was backing away. Now understand, as I said, they had an orbiter already out there. So when Hoagland and the team was basically like, you already got an orbiter out there, just go, take the pictures. Just mysteriously, the orbiter was down. He lost contact with it or something like that. Something was wrong with the orbiter. And, they said, oh no, something wrong with the orbiter. We lost contact. It's basically down. So, that's suspect. Then you had just out of the blue, a few years later, NASA just basically started, getting on board with the whole thing, saying, okay, well, it's possible when we got to go back. And then NASA just completely changed its tune on the whole situation on Mars with the face and the pyramids and everything like that. Changed its tune. So then you had in 1998, it was in 98 where you had the Mars orbiter was basically coming back around Cydonia where the face was at. And they said, okay, well, we got a higher resolution camera out there with this orbiter, and we're going to take pictures of the area again to see what we see. So then you had pictures been taken. The pictures came back. They wasn't released immediately, which was suspect. But then when the pictures came out again, it looked like this, the face. A lot of you, as I said, know about this already. The face looked completely not like a face. So much so that it's like, how could you ever think it was a face in the first place when you look at the new pictures? Now, obviously, Hoagland and his team was shocked at the pictures because, just look at it. It doesn't look like a face. And it's like, something is wrong. You can obviously, I don't care what nobody said when it comes to these pictures. I mean, when you go and look at the older photos, the original ones that Hoagland had, this is one of the things right here. Look at the top of the head on the face. There are dots. You can see these holes there. Now, when you look at the later pictures, where are those holes? Where do you go? They're gone. The holes is not there no more. And one of the reasons why the holes was so, telltale is because people was looking at the face as a hockey mask. People was like, oh yeah, the holes make the face look like a hockey mask, and people made the face with a Jason body and stuff like that. A lot of people were saying it's a hockey mask on Mars. This is what the public was saying about the face when a lot of people was looking at it. Those holes was something that everybody was talking about. Then when you look at the later pictures or the supposedly higher resolution shots, where are those holes? They're gone. Now, there's nothing that you could mistake on the new pictures as being holes. So what is that whole thing about? Which NASA doesn't really address. What it's about. Then when you look at the little carving on the side of the face, it's not what you got to understand. They took angles. It's a couple shots of this face, and in every angle, it looks like a face. But when these new pictures come back, it does not look like a face at all. It look like something defaced to face. So this is what Hoagland was basically saying. He was pushing it like, something is up. NASA either doctored the pictures or they went there and defaced the face or something like that. And it was something that a lot of people who was on board with the whole thing in the beginning, basically left it alone, saying, okay, well, we was wrong. And okay, it could have been shadows. But to anybody who really analyzed those photos, like those researchers, they said there's no way that this could be the same thing. Either you change the photos or you deface the face. So now understand, people bought into it. They bought into what NASA was showing with the face, and people actually believed that that's how the face really looked, and it wasn't a face, it was just a mistake. And then, of course, you had the powers that be in their media finally talk about it and put it out to the people, put it out in the press as the face is not a face. The face is just a mistake. It's just a misunderstanding. And you understand, if the news talking about it, everybody's going to believe it. So if somebody want to bring it up later and say, no, what about the face on Mars? They're going to say, well, no, the news already clarified that whole thing. It was on the news. The news clarified and said it wasn't a face. It was just a mistake. It's a hoax. So they basically wiped that thing out. Everybody was like, it's not a face and this and that. But then you got to understand, everybody was so focused on the face, they didn't pay attention to the pyramids. They forgot all about that. Everybody was so focused on the face, and they forgot about the 600-foot spire structure that was there. So everybody focused on the face and not realizing that the pictures came back with the pyramids looking the same, with the 600-foot spire structure still casting that shadow that clearly could not be artificial. That clearly cannot be natural, but only artificial for it to be cast in the shadow the way that it did. Now, this is the thing. When they did more research into that area, the original 1976 mission of Viking, they found that the Viking orbiter, when it got to that location where the 600-foot spire structure was at, the orbiter snapped 4 rapid pictures in succession. 4 quick pictures. 4 shots. Right? Never again, or none during that trip, all the years it was out there, has it ever took 4 rapid pictures of any other place in succession the way it did when it got over that area with the 600-foot spire obelisk, or whatever it is, the structure. So this is something that had to be pre-programmed into the orbiter before it went out there. It's not something they could have done remotely and then get shots off that fast because of the time it takes between them actually sending out a remote signal and then getting to the orbiter. So it was something that they already knew, that they programmed into the orbiter before it even went out. Why? That whole thing was suspect. And then you never again see it again, because that is the dagger right there. That is the smoking gun that the researchers was talking about earlier. This one thing, and we wrong about everything else. We could be wrong about the face. We could be wrong about every other pyramid. But that 600-foot spire structure is in no way natural. It's 100% artificial. And the shadow that it casts, there's no way nature can do something like that. Just think about the Washington Monument and something not, it being natural. And then when you just look at the general area of everything around there, where did it come from? If it was natural, what put it there and then left it there and then didn't leave no footprint of what put it there, in its way. So you would think you could see what put it there if something naturally made it or where it came from. For these structures and areas to be the way it is, even with the pyramids, what did it? How could that be natural in the way it's set up? And this is basically what Hoagland and his team was talking about, that anybody with a brain can look at this stuff and see there's no way all of these things could be a coincidence, that all these things is just natural and that none of them are artificial. One, when you just go back and look at the pyramid. When you look at the pyramid and just look down on top of it, then look at the pyramid in Kemet, you can see clearly it looks the same. It looks the same. And we know the pyramid in Kemet is artificial. It was built. There's no way I've seen a lot of pyramids that's natural. Remember in my video when I went out to Pyramid Canyon, I posted that video up there. I was talking about all these pyramid-shaped mountains that's out there in Pyramid Canyon. I just came from there now, on my way to I'm going to go see the Hoover Dam and everything. So I passed them again, and those you can see the rigid rocks. You can tell, it's natural. It does look like a pyramid, but you can tell some of them It's just naturally done, and it's just the way it is.